Sebagai bagian dari perguruan tinggi ini, kami mengemban tanggung jawab untuk melaksanakan Tridharma perguruan tinggi. Kolaborasi nasional dan internasional merupakan kunci dalam melaksanakan Tridharma tersebut. Melalui kolaborasi ini pula, CBMH dapat bertransformasi menjadi sebuah pusat pengembangan ilmu bioetika dan humaniora kedokteran dan membidani lahirnya program Master Bioetika.
Kalau ada satu pertanyaan, apa sebenarnya bioetika itu? Bioetika itu berkembang dari waktu ke waktu. Yang tadinya etika menjadi biomedical ethics, oleh karena yang banyak menggunakan etika itu kedokteran, medical tadi. Namun demikian sebenarnya pada saat ini yang tidak etis itu tidak hanya kedokteran saja, bisa terjadi di hampir semua bidang ilmu. Sehingga dengan demikian dari biomedical ethics tadi berkembang menjadi bioetika, kemudian global bioethics, ya. Dan yang terakhir yang kita kembangkan di sini, apa yang kita sebut dengan the new sense of bioethics. Ini pun saya mengembangkan ini distimulasi oleh sekretaris UNESCO yang di Paris. Pertanyaannya, Narto, kamu punya Pancasila, tolong etika itu dikembangkan ini. The new sense of bioethics itu adalah satu studi dari transdisciplinary subject, biologi dan seterusnya, ya. Ada sosiologi, ada economics, ada politik, language, bahkan arts, and is studying of human behavior untuk memiliki in having a new tolerance on transdisciplinary attitude. Apa itu artinya? Memang ada keterangan lebih lanjut, tapi itu setidak-tidaknya batasan dari New Sense of Bioethics. Tadinya itu respect for person, beneficence, dan justice. 3. Berkembang menjadi 4. Respect for autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, dan justice. Nah, dengan the new sense of bioethics ini, respect for others itu berarti respect pada antar orang dengan hewan, antar orang dengan tumbuh-tumbuhan maupun lingkungan. Ya, jadi dengan demikian respect for others itu ada artinya tersendiri, berkembang lagi. Beneficent, non maleficent, yang kita tambahkan di situ adalah tidak hanya justice tetapi it should be social justice for all. Itulah Pancasila.
Sampun Prof. Hari bisa langsung dibuka sesi rapornya.
Good morning, Professor Stuckelberger. Selamat siang, distinguished lecturers and participants. This morning or this afternoon, we are going to listen to a very interesting talk and discussion by Professor Stuckelberger. First, I would like to thank you, Professor Stuckelberger, for your time and your generosity to talk to us about very important topic, very important subject this afternoon, the intersection of health, environment, and from the title, I learned that it's also religion. So I think this is encompassed almost everything related to ethics. First of all, I would like to read the curriculum vitae of Professor Christoph Stuckelberger. Professor Stuckelberger is a professor emeritus at the University of Basel, distinguished professor at the Technical University of MEPHL in Moscow, visiting professor at very many universities, distinguished universities, including Leeds, Beckett University Business School in Leeds, UK, Professor Stuckelberger got doctor honoris causa from the Protestant University in Congo, honorary professorship from Unibit University of Sofia, Bulgaria, founder of the Global Network on Ethics by Bioethics Foundation, based in Geneva, Switzerland. Professor Stuckelberger wrote hundreds of articles, of course, but I think one of his masterpieces, ethical investment. The environment and development, an ethical orientation. The main field of research and teaching of Professor Stuckelberger is global ethics applied to economics, business ethics, environmental ethics, trade ethics, financial ethics, including tax ethics, political ethics, development ethics, cyber ethics, and philanthropy. I think that's very broad issues of ethics, and I don't want to take more of your time. This Professor Christoph Stuckelberger, the time is yours. Thank you so much. Please, Professor Stuckelberger. You
Can
are
you
still
hear me?
unmute, I'm sorry.
Can you hear
You
me?
are still mute. Yeah, thank you. Yes, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, very clear now.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you very
Professor.
much, Professor
Yeah.
Hari, for this kind introduction. I'm very happy to be with you. You know, I was for many years coming regularly to Indonesia since about over 20 years to teach at Duta Wacana, to have trainings or conferences at UGM and ICRC. We have a board member, Diki Sofyan, in our Bioethics board, international board. And now, due to COVID, of course, we could not travel, but I'm happy to be now in this meeting and with you. So my topic, I will share the screen, is on a timely topic. And let me see that screen sharing. Yes, so from beginning. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So the topic is bioethics for health and environment, religious perspective for the common good. I choose this combination of, or I was asked to speak about bioethics. That's a very large topic, of course, but I want to add it also to the religious perspective, because Indonesia is a very fascinating context in Jogja, but also in the other parts of the country, where you have committed Muslim communities, but you have also minority religions, if I may say, Christianity and Buddhism and others, and and then of course many people would call themselves non-religious, and so to make the bridge between these, because when we talk about bioethics, we need to cooperate all. That's a bit, that's my commitment. I will go through 8 points: bioethical challenges for religions and interreligious cooperation, the typology of bioethical methodologies, then Christian and Islamic themes in bioethics, then about welcome as guests on earth. That is the title also of a booklet that was published in Indonesian, if I'm correct, but many years back, and so on. So I start with the question, simple questions of definitions. What is ethics? You, Professor Ari, said you're not a specialist in ethics, but I'm sure implicitly we all are looking or are somehow dealing with it. Ethics looks for normative orientation on good and bad, values and virtues. So almost every action in our life includes an ethical question. For example, I have here a pen. What kind of pen do I buy? Is it environmentally sound? Does it pollute when I throw it away? What kind of paper I write on? What kind of technology I use? What kind of food I eat in the morning? Every action has a question of, what do I do? Do I pollute my body, so to say, with food which is not healthy? Then bioethics is a part of ethics related to all forms of life. Bio or bios in Greek is simple the word for life. So we now, of course, speak about human and non-human life, plants and animals, and we know more than in the past how much we are interdependent between all forms of life. So bioethics is a part of ethics, one sector. Economic ethics would be another one. Political ethics would be on governance. Technology ethics would be on digital and artificial intelligence and so on. Now, bioethics looks especially at normative orientation in the use of biotechnology in the various sectors, such as medical bioethics, AI, artificial intelligence ethics, and in biotechnology, ethics of biotechnological modification of crops, etc. I was for 10 years member of the Swiss Advisory Committee to the Swiss government on biotechnology in the non-human field. So when a company wanted to use genetically modified crops in maize, in rice or whatever, they needed a permission from the Swiss government to do that because it could be affecting other crops. So we had to give advice to the government to allow or not to allow genetically modified crops test planting. Religion tries to connect the immanent world with the transcendent world, the material with the spiritual, the visible with the invisible. That's a very broad description of religions. And then, of course, we have different applications, so to say, of religions in the different forms. Interreligious cooperation looks at common ground and values in the respective religions in order, in order to strengthen cooperation for human life. Now, what is then the way, that we can find answers? What is now a responsible bioethical answer to crops or to use some biotechnologies in medicine, including developing drugs and medicine and so on? So what are the methods to answer these questions? And I described 5 positions which are sometimes conflicting to each other, and that's on the next slide. Religious bioethical positions depend on what we call hermeneutics. Hermeneutics is the method of interpretation of texts in general. Can be a poet, can be an author, whatever. But here I related to methods of interpretation of Holy Scriptures. The Quran, Bhagavad Gita, the Bible. How can we interpret it in order to make it meaningful for bioethics of the 21st century? One is the so-called fundamentalist positions. The scripture is interpreted in a literal way. That means the Quran says this, and that's how it's written. It's valid over centuries, including our current days. Another position would be called, I call it orthodox positions, and that is in all religions. These 5 positions exist in all religions. Orthodox positions is combining the scripture, the holy texts, and tradition, the laws of religious authorities. The Quran was interpreted during centuries, and you have a corpus of scholars who help to understand the original Quran for today. So scripture and tradition is then what I would call orthodox positions, and that is, I would say, the mainstream. The same in Christianity. We have the Bible, but we have also the medieval and the church fathers and the modern theologians who try to, in the Protestant, for example, if I take the Protestant tradition in Indonesia, Tuta Wacana University where I was teaching, then they look at Luther or Calvin and their positions related, of course, to the Bible always. The Reformist positions is then scripture plus contextualization. So what is the meaning of Quran in an Indonesian context? You need to, in order to live the values of philosophical or religious values in a specific context, we need to contextualize. And we, of course, know that the Middle East or the European or the Indonesian context is not the same. So how to be faithful to the scripture plus but contextualization, and that is often, I would call it, reformist positions, because reform means we have to adapt. For example, in the Quran, there is no mentioning of artificial intelligence. It was not a topic, of course not. But how can we translate the wisdom and the truth and the values in the Holy Scripture, is it the Quran or the Bible, into these new questions? The liberal positions is then scripture plus autonomy, saying, yes, the Quran is important, but I have also my own brain, and I'm gifted with my own thinking, and it's a gift of Allah, the benevolent, to give me the capacity to translate eternal truth into today's world. My individual conscience is there, so it's more freedom to interpret than in the other three positions. And then we have the mystical positions, scripture plus the spiritual way, which is a very deep meditative way and all religions have also this mystical tradition. The Christian mystics, the Islamic mystic, for example, Sufism is famous for that. Now, I can say the same in the following graph. It's fundamentally the question of the two poles, freedom versus authority. So the individual conscience, if you are not a religious person, you say, I don't believe in any holy scriptures. I have my brain and my philosophical convictions, and I read the newspapers, and I take my decisions based on that. That is, so to say, the freedom from any reference to holy texts. The other is the authority is absolute, and is absolute and has to be respected in a literal or less literal way. That leads me now to the next. That is just the same. I make this graph between the different approaches: literal, traditional. Literal could be seen as fundamentalist, traditional, orthodox, contextual, reformist, mystical, and then autonomy and authority. So this is, I would say, an orthodox position. The liberal would be more on that side. So that is just to find out, when we have discussions, for example, what is the right application of Islamic thoughts and Sharia in the positive sense of Islamic law. How can we apply it, that you have in mind that there is not one way, there are different ways, but they struggle with each other, and we need a dialogue about how to interpret that and apply that now for today's bioethical questions. Now, let me take a few themes in that. For example, in medical ethics, what is the beginning of life, the enhancement and duration of life, end of life? Bio is all about life, between beginning and end of life. And that was very clear. You are in the past, you are born, you live, and you die. But a lot of questions nowadays, we can extend life with medical treatment. We can even keep a person in a coma, means without conscience, but still the heart is beating, is still alive. Should we keep it for years in the fridge, so to say, or in the coma on the machine? But what is then life? Is life just the heartbeat, or is life more? Is conscious brain working not an integral part of human life? So very painful, difficult questions to ask. Also, the beginning of life, abortion is a critical issue. Abortion in the first 9 weeks is allowed, after it's no more allowed. So when is the real start of life, and how to protect life? Then agriculture, health, environment. So food and water. I mentioned already genetically modified crops in order to increase productivity of crops, in order to avoid diseases of wheat or of rice. How can we do that with a population of 8 to 9 billion people on Earth, 10 times more than 100 or 200 years ago? We are able to feed, theoretically, we are able to feed 9 billion people now, which was not the case 100 years ago. So we need biotechnological methods to improve food production. But what are the limits and what are the chances? In economy, politics, law, leadership, patenting, for example. I mean, what can be patented? If Monsanto, the American company, patented some rice, the golden rice or others, and then you, the farmers in Indonesia, have to buy the crops always from Monsanto because they cannot reproduce the rice. It's a sterile rice, and that leads then to the dependency of one company. So how to do that? Just yeah, sure. Okay, all the best. Thank you. So the pattern and the way exploiting the gender issue. How are the different the men and women affected by in the positive or negative side of bioethical methods? The governance, who regulates? You mentioned already there are a lot of regulatory efforts on a global level. In Geneva, I'm based in the midst of the UN agencies. WIPO, I met yesterday evening one director of WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization, to regulate the patenting. What are the rules internationally? Then we have ILO, the working conditions, the pesticides in the field, and so on. The biopiracy, criminality, all that are questions around bioethics. So you see, I open a bit the window for many aspects, but I think also I address the students among you, PhDs or the researchers. There are a lot of topics around bioethics, values, and religions. Now, let me come to point 4. Welcome as guests on Earth. That is, what is then the attitude, towards, is the Earth our property? Can we do with it what we want? Or is it something that we borrow? As religions would say, we are not the owners of the Earth, we are the guests on Earth. It made it possible from the divine, the creator is the owner of the Earth and not we. So what is our role on this beautiful planet? read what I write here. In the name of God is the profound motto of this, not of this conference, but of this, it was from another conference. And the parochial foundation of bioethics is that God invites all human beings. You are welcome as guests on earth. And I did a comparative study that is not only in the Bible, this notion of being a guest on earth, it's in the different religions. This awareness that we are not the owner, but we are invited to use this earth in a responsible way. As Iranians, Asians, Europeans, Americans, Africans, Chinese, whatever we are coming from, as rich and poor, as socialists and capitalists, as Muslim, Hindu, Christians, Buddhists, Jewish, etc. We all are guests on earth. Life and natural resources are not a personal possession. And the pure fact that we do not create ourselves, it was a gift from our parents, or from the divine, we would say. So this pure fact is already a proof that we cannot create ourselves. I can probably in future copy paste and make a copy of me, but I'm unique, and my life was not created by myself. So to be a guest on earth is an anthropology which is deeply rooted in many religious traditions and many cultures. In the Abrahamic religions, so Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, it's linked to God, the creator, and human beings as his creation with a specific offer and responsibility. And that's my point. On an ethical point of view, we can use it, but we are not allowed to abuse it. And that is the key question of ethics, how to use our brain with biotechnology, in this case of today's lecture, but how can we avoid to abuse it? This is the key, simple, and at the same time complex question. Now, if I say we have to be responsible in our use of this beautiful planet, what does it mean? Responsibility means to respond. In Latin, respondere, to answer to God's call. The Latin word spondere, I use my own interpretation. Spondere means to give, to sponsor. We know it also in English, to sponsor. God sponsors all life and his whole creation so that living beings as his creatures can have life in its fullness by grace. That's a quote from the New Testament. So human responsibility is the response to these gifts. Today, the Greek word oikos means house, is present in 3 dimensions. The oikonomia means to caring about the production and services in this oikos, the worldwide, the planet we can call oikos. Ecology, oikologia, is also the word oikos, and even ecumenism, oikonomia, oikomene. So you see the word oikos, the Greek word, is present in today. So if we say we need an environmentally sound bioethics, that means we have to care for the oikos of the human and the non-human beings. That is and we can compare the planet as our household. You know, from a small household, we have a family, we have a few rooms to live in, and how do we care? We do waste separation, we don't waste food, we clean the house. So this small oikos, we can translate into the planetary level, or the national level, the regional level. Yogyakarta as a city, Indonesia as a nation, Asia as a continent, and the whole planet, how to care like we care for the household as at home. That's the meaning of responsibility. Now, but why should we care? I mean, I care for my house, but I'm not responsible for my neighbor, and I just look at my small world. I cannot care for the whole world, that's too much. And I want to live, I want to have a decent living, I want to get rich. I'm not caring about the poor neighbors because it's their mistake or they have to care for themselves. Why should I care for the others? That's a key question. So I would say we have in the different religions, and again, also in philosophical way, we can say we care for the common good. That means, of course, I'm responsible for myself first, and then for my close partners or families. But I cannot do it on the back of the others. That means, and I take one example from the Bible, but I know that there are similar verses, surah in the Quran, reminding us that we are not alone on this earth. We are responsible for each other. And this one story is a telling one. There is the bad and the good manager who cares for the household, so to say, or the company, or as a political leader for the country. It says, who then is the faithful and wise steward? We could also say the scientist, the scholar, we all, whom his master will set over his household to give them their portion of food at the proper time. Blessed, and now is the lesson says, blessed is that servant whom his master when he comes will find so doing. Truly, I say to you, he will set him all over his possessions. But if that servant says to himself, my master is delayed, it's about, coming of the divine on earth, and begins to beat the main servants and the maid servants, and to eat and drink and get drunk, the master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him and at an hour he does not know, and will punish him and put him with the unfaithful. Everyone to whom much is given, of much will be required, and of whom men commit much, they will demand the more. Just a second. Yeah, it was just the sound, sorry. So that means we, around this Zoom meeting, we have intellectual gifts given to us. We are responsible to use it not only to better exploit the others, but better serve the others. That's the teaching, I think, of our different religious holy texts. And then, of course, is the question, which community, which level? I start from within the wide myself. I mean, I have to bring in order my own life, but then the family, the partners, the children, the yellow, the broader family, the clan, the relatives, the professional community, the team, the university faculty, my peer students, the red and the neighborhood, the green, the peers, the sport, the specific interest groups, professional communities, the brown, the nation, the state, the people, the region, the continent, and the blue then, the humanity, so to say, and even the whole planet and outer space. So that is from within to the larger space is our common good, which allows us to live. And that is then translated also in the very practical way of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. I put it in a circle because that means they are interrelated and connected to each other. And biotechnology, that's another criteria, just to ask, does biotechnology contribute to the SDGs, or is it an obstacle to it? So each action, in each new technology, we have to raise this simple question: how does it contribute to the SDGs, and how does it hinder it? Now, let me come to another point of how to do that now, and what are the values, because these values that we are talking about, they are interconnected, but also competing to each other. And I published a book, you can download it for free, a book called Global Balance Towards a New World Order. The second edition I published last November, 850 pages, but you can download it for free, bioethics.net/globalance. Then you have the soft copy in your hand on your computer. You can compare life as a river or flowing water or the sea. And water is always, almost always, at least in a river and in the sea, is on the move. It's not stable. And it is life-giving, but it's also life-threatening. In Indonesia, we have regularly the floods, and we know this. Sorry again, sorry. So, I put it on that we see that we are in a difficult situation of balance. We are not alone on earth, and we have to balance with the others. I want to do good, but my neighbor wants to exploit. I want to use biotechnology for the common good, but the others use it for their own profit only. So how to balance these things is very difficult. And my solution, or my proposal here, is to balance different values and also the virtues. Values are basic points of orientation. I don't go through the whole list: responsibility, freedom, justice, and so on and so on. And the virtues are more the personal behavior, like caring, like respecting each other, humility, and so on. So if somebody says, yeah, but we are in a free economy, I have to do business, I can do business as I want, and don't come the social equality, I want my freedom of business. So you have a conflict between those who say, no, I want to do business related to the common good, and the other one who says, I want to do business to become rich. And you all know these persons and situations also in your country, in our country, Indonesia. My point is that these values and virtues are interrelated. That's why I put it in form of a tree, like the big branches. Or we can put it in a circle. They relate to each other. For example, freedom and justice have one line, a horizontal line in this circle. So freedom and justice are interlinked. We cannot say I'm for freedom and against justice, or I'm for justice, but let's forget about freedom. So how to balance this, how to combine freedom and justice, for example, in economic or in in technological area. The same is true for the virtues. And now we can have extremisms. We all know the extremism in the world. The extremists say, I caring only for one virtue or one value or even for one vice. That is a negative virtue. I want to exploit the others, so I go to the dark net and I'm a spammer or a hacker. I steal the knowledge of the others, and that's my way of life, and I can become rich by hacking. And the others would say, no, that's not ethical. So, and my view is that global balance is the concept of balancing, as I said, for example, freedom and justice, or empowerment and humility. You know, you can empower students and say, you are really brilliant, use your brain, and then the students become so self-confident that they say, I'm the best and I'm better than you. Or you can combine self-confidence and empowerment with humility. Yes, I know that I'm brilliant, but I'm also modest, because it's my brilliance is not only my own work. We also have in all religions the so-called golden rule of reciprocity. Do to others what you want them to do to you. It's a very fundamental human wisdom to say this reciprocity is the basis for all actions. So in biotechnology, again, if we want a treatment, a medical treatment, or we want crops, do we treat each other equally? That means, for example, if I want to have access to some genetically modified crops, do I allow the others also to have this access? That's the whole farming debate. A farmer must be able to reproduce its crops and not buy it each year for a high price from somebody. Now, I close with a few ethical principles for biotechnologies: contributing to meet basic human needs, respecting and enabling a life in dignity, promoting equity in access and distribution of natural resources, goods, and services. I mean, we did not talk about the forests. I was in Kalimantan, this huge, beautiful resource of tropical forests in Indonesia. How do we care with it? How can biotechnology help use it in a responsible way? Promoting sustainability, promoting human and animal health, promoting security and social peace, promoting participation in decision-making, increasing efficiency in use of resources and funds, preserving biological and cultural diversity, enabling balanced development. I add one word on increasing efficiency in use of resources and funds. Biotechnology may help us, for example, to reduce the water used for agriculture. We all know that water becomes scarce in some parts of the world, and we need to have growth of crops with less water. And some biotechnological methods, some of you may be experts on that, I'm not, may help us in efficiency of water use for several aspects. Summary: biotechnologies, as all technologies, are, from an ethical point of view, positive if they set the priority in meeting the basic human of all human beings in order to enable them to live in dignity. They are positive if they promote values such as justice, sustainability, participation, and diversity. biotechnologies are negative if they hinder them and increase the gap between rich and poor, increase injustice and conflicts, destroy environment, violate the dignity and integrity of human and non-human beings, and threaten biodiversity. So this is just a summary, and I hope that this can be a guideline for you to further evaluate, validate which form of biotechnology is positive and which one is ethically negative. Thank you so much. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Stuckelberger, for a very thought-provoking lecture. I just realized that I'm mystical. Sometimes I'm unorthodox, you know. So I realize now that, okay, but whatever my religious orientation, I think the most important first and foremost is serving the common good. And we use the we use bioethics as a guide how to meet the basic needs of all human beings and also to eliminate the inequity and to promote justice. I think that's very, very good advice from you. Professor Stuckelberger, that we have more than 55 participants from Indonesia, from Russia, from Malaysia, I think. So I would like to invite the participants to ask questions, to make comments, to clarify maybe some of what you said. Okay, please. The time is for you, participants. Please raise your hand to ask questions. Okay, we have many avid listeners here.
Yes, we have Gunardi Endro, raise the hand.
Thank you, Prof, for
the
presentation. It's quite optimistic seems to me, but really that I'm belonging to the pessimistic people with regard to the development of technology. I see that the development of technology is too fast, and most of the development is carried out in Europe and United States of America. While it is it's just like a racing between ethics and the development of technology. Right now, I think more and more, specifically in the field of artificial intelligence, that's really scary for me, right? So, well, so how Europe and United States try to govern or control the development of technology in order to calm it down so that it tends not harming the people, but benefiting the people in the world. Because as you know that if you analyze as a movement between imbalance to balance, right? But now with the development of technology, it's just kind of a movement that will harm the people as a victim in the process of movement, you know. So that is what makes me scary, actually. Could you please tell us about what happened in Europe and United States, Prof? Thank you very much.
Yeah, please, Professor Stuckelberger. That's a question from Dr. Gunardi Endro. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Yes, Dr. Gunardi Endro, thank you so much. That's a very important point. And in fact, threatening, as you say, or scary. What are the developments? And I hear three aspects. The one is the speed. You say it's very fast. So how do we run behind these developments in an ethical way? The second is the new technology now, and that has to do with the speed. The AI, artificial intelligence, is within a few years so overwhelmingly fast, with ChatGPT and all the rest adding to that. And then the special geographical issue, or the dominance issue, who is, so to say, dominating, and how can we govern that whole development? And I think these are three very important aspects. Maybe on the speed, I don't have a final answer, but I said yesterday to some of the UN people, this speed is bringing us as human beings to a limit. We are all agile, and but many people are left alone, left behind. I mean, you and me and the participants here are able to reflect and to act and to speed up and understand. But a big part of humanity are not able. They are illiterate, or they don't have time. They struggle for survival. They don't have the luxury of all that reflection. And even us, I mean, it's so difficult to, every day there is a new technology, a new device, and to adapt it and to reflect about so what is the solution to speed? I think one is that they are different. One would be the revolutionary path, to say we just stop and we destroy technologies, we dismantle these companies, and so we have to really stop all this development. That's not easy, and will not be possible. The other is what a moratorium. You know, moratorium means, for example, we close the border and say for 5 years we don't allow new technologies to come in, because we need first to improve our regulations, our national laws, and so on and so on. And that was done again and again in the past. And I think also in Indonesia, but I take the example in Europe, we have a moratorium on genetically modified crops. So the Swiss government, and also on recommendation of the Commission, where I was a member, said there are too many open questions about GMO crops. We don't allow to be planted in the Swiss soil. And that was for a number of years. I think it's partly still the case. That means Monsanto, for example, or farmers could not use certain types of crops to plant until these difficult questions are solved. That's the national legislation would allow that. Of course, then others would come and say, yeah, but that's a disadvantage for our agriculture in competing internationally. But people are concerned. Safe food is more important for many people than 10 years ago. So it helps people to feel safe what they eat and drink. The other solution is to speed up with regulation. Regulation is slow by definition. It has democratic procedures. UN needs to agree on a global level. So we need to speed up the legislation process, because there is a gap between the technological speed, very high, and the regulation always far behind. So these are some on the speed issue. On AI, we are just now in Bioethics in Geneva working on this. And I just discussed this morning that I invite you in Indonesia, and you have scholars, you have brilliant people to be part of this debate. We will organize several events now in November, then also at the World Summit for Information Society next May, together with UN agencies, UNESCO, ITU, and others, but also with the private sector. And you, I'm sure you do it already in Indonesia itself, how to have an ethical, we call it AI ethics. On globalethics.net publications, you also find 2 books on that, or 3 on AI ethics. So let's be in dialogue on that. And our commitment, my own commitment, is also we need to hear the voice from the different continents. And that is the 3rd point you mentioned about Europe and US. I agree with you. It's not inclusive. A few companies and governments run ahead, and you have to claim, to shout, and I'm a bit strong on that. Indonesians have to shout and say, look, we are also, with our 200 million people, 200 plus million people, we need to be heard, and we are not just recipients of your regulations and your technologies. We are at the table on same high level. You have to claim that, and the multilateral system is still a good way, but I think your government is aware of that, and you as scholars in the universities or also as religious leaders, you join hands and say, and we are here in Geneva in the midst of the UN, we can partner with you on that. So I fully agree, it's an imbalanced situation, and of course the whole economic power behind the big giants in this sector has to be taken into account. I can tell you, I was coming back on Friday, a few days ago, from China. I was 2 weeks there. I met also, among others, Huawei, the giant. So we have Google and Huawei and these giant technology partners. You can read it also publicly. Huawei has almost 100,000 in the R&D, so in the research field. Imagine, they develop, 100,000 people develop day and night new technologies. And that's why they are so speedy, and we all benefit from that. We benefit from smart cities, from smart electric cars, from smart mobile phones. It's a lot of benefit, but the speed is immense. So I talked to them and I said, look, why don't we set up an ethics think tank also with you on your technologies? And of course, they were open. So this is just an example of we need to balance and bring people to the table. And that means we need to slow down the speed of development in order to have time to reflect. Sorry for the long answer.
Thank you very much for the answer. We are still waiting for other questions, please. Meanwhile, there is a question from Dr. Najib Komyura, whether the secular UN bioethics are sufficient for common good.
Yeah, thank you. And then I see also Bahio, Devi, Sulis, Tiarini raising their hand after. So yes, Nadib, the question of secular and non-secular, in Europe and US and including China, religious partners are often not seen as important, so it's a secular debate, so to say. And my thesis in this speech with you is there cannot be a solution if we don't include also religious values. Majority of humanity are still believers in one or the other, and I say it in a very open way, in an interreligious way, even though myself I'm a Protestant Christian, but we need to cooperate between all the non-religious and the religious aspects. And I'm sure that in terms of, and I know in terms of biotechnology and ethics, religions can contribute to orientation, as I tried in my presentation. So, for example, in Islam, you have a lot of really profound commitment on equality and justice. That's just one example. So you can bring it to the table and say, look, we cannot have technologies which are not taking seriously this equality and justice. And without that, you in the companies in Europe or wherever, you will not be able to convince our government if you are not reflecting about these values, which are our values in Indonesia. The same for the Christian background or the Buddhist backgrounds. I know people in Indonesia from all backgrounds. And I also welcome those in Russia and Malaysia who attend. I was teaching in Moscow, and they're the same. You know, the Russian government cannot convince people on new technologies if they are not dialoguing with the Russian Orthodox, because they are an important part with all the criticisms we of course have to different religions, but they have to be included. That's my message to that. And we have to argue, and we don't have to be shy. You know, some people, and I know it from myself, we are in a national advisory board, or in a company board, or we are an employee or a director in a company or in a university, and we say, no, let's leave religion apart. We should argue only philosophically. That's wrong. We need to be open, of course, open-minded, but we need to bring these values to the table.
Thank you, Prof. Stekelberger. Please, Ibu Wahyu Dewi Sulistiarini.
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. Hari, for the chance, and also thank you for Professor Christoph that gave very insightful presentation today, and it's very interesting topic for me. We talk about common good, and I also think that every religion also teaches to do good things with God and also with human each other. But I also underline the presentation from Professor Christoph that mentioned about common good in our society and our community. It's really harmony when it's happened in our situation that every people will do good things with their self, with the family, neighbor, with their society, and they aware with their right and also they're responsible. But maybe in a situation now, we face many problems, Professor, and especially in Indonesia, there are many problems for environment, like water and air pollution, and also destruction of ecosystem and environment. So would you like to share your point of view for the protection program, maybe from the Global Ethics Organization? What kind of things that the organization will do and the important role for face that situation to establish the balancing environment. Thank you.
Please, Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ibu Wahyu. Yes, I mean, we can only do it together. And of course, we as an organization, a global organization, we have our Indonesia office in UGM and ICRS. And so we, and Diki Sofyan at UGM, who is our board member, is also very much involved in these environmental issues. So we discuss it regularly with him. And please also approach him, as he knows global ethics very well. Yes, I think you face a lot of these problems in Indonesia, but we all face them in our respective contexts. One exercise I sometimes do with my students is to say, imagine you're a politician and in your ministry you have $100 million or 10 million US dollars, and let's say $100 million US dollars to invest in sectors. What do you do with this? How do you distribute it? Do you put it in technology research? Do you put it in a water dam? Do you put it in education? Do you put it in free trade zone in Jakarta or whatever? Because that is then the proof, so to say, of ethical priorities. How we invest money. Is it tax money or is it company money? Taxpayers' money from the government. And that is just an exercise to set priorities. What are the priorities we need? And I think technology, and you have heard, I'm not at all anti-technology. Technology can help a lot, but there is a hype. People expect heaven on earth through technology, and that's wrong. Technology is an instrument, but is not a God. Technology can help us, but for example, we need to invest more in education. Even in therapy, my wife is a psychotherapist, and all the people I know also in Indonesia, all the people are cracking down and depression and say, I cannot manage this speed of development. So the government, I would say, if I have 100 million, I would of course invest in commerce and in technology research, but I would invest a lot in education. We need to educate, to train, to capacitate, empower people to digest this development. For example, in dealing with social media, I mean, during COVID, and I think it was the same in Indonesia, if young people were days and days just on their social media, gambling or searching or dating, and in a bubble of COVID lockdown, we now see the psychological problems that this created. So I think I would start a program on counseling for students, for example, because if you have millions of mentally fragile people, that is a threat also to the stability of the country. It's very clear. So that is just not a full answer, but a protection program needs a lot of investments into environmental protection for the long term, but also for the short term already. And technology can help us in that, as I said, water schemes, water reduced so that we have enough drinking water and so on, but also the whole forest issue. And there I may add another, I'm involved in a scheme, and you know it, of CO2 credits. There are possibilities now that the polluters have to pay. So when I'm flying, I take a flight or I take a car, I have this and this, so many kilos or tons of CO2 emission. I have to pay a special CO2 tax. My flight is then maybe 5% more expensive. But how to invest now the money collected like that? And there are mechanisms existing and to be developed, further developed, where then the absorbers, so for example, the Indonesian government as owner of millions of square miles of forest, tropical forest, the tropical forest is absorbing CO2. So the polluter pays to the Indonesian government for protecting the trees, because this forest has an economic value beyond the timber value. It's if we keep the trees alive, they absorb CO2. That's an economic value. So that is an instrument to reduce cutting of forests. If we say, if you keep the forest alive, you will get as much or even more than cutting it for the low price of timber, and then you plant some soya or something, you get better money if you keep the trees and you plant some small crops under the trees. So these kind of economic models and then environmental models, I expect and hope that you in UGM, you have the brains, you have the scientists, you have the social scientists included to develop such proposals and submit it to the government, and the government would say, look, this is a win-win situation. The same with the private forests. We have a project in Africa where we do that, even with the sea. CO2, the sea is also absorbing CO2. That has a price. And we can be part of this CO2 emission trading, which is tricky because some abuses are done already. You know, some of this CO2 emission trading just goes to the wrong pocket. So we need also, and I'm involved since 25 years on anti-corruption, protecting the environment and anti-corruption efforts go hand in hand. They cannot be one without the other. You know it, as I know. I studied this, the role of corruption in cutting Indonesian forests. We know it. So, yeah. So we have to work on all these different levels, and we can.
Thank you, Prof. Christoph. I got the great keyword answer, Prof. Hari, from Prof. Christoph. Educate, train, empower, advocate, and use the right technology as an instrument, right? Professor Christoph mentioned. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And
Prof.
the right
Hari.
economic incentives.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
We still have one more question, please. Please raise your
Maybe
hand
I
if you have
can
questions.
ask a question to you, to the audience, and somebody may take it up. I mean, what do you see as main instruments for this balanced, environmentally sound and economically feasible development? Bioethics for health and environment. What are your and including the religious perspective of it, what would be your approaches? Who wants to answer?
So the question is how to balance the economic development and environment
Yes, and
sustainability.
how can the religion contribute to that?
Yeah, very interesting question. Please, if there is a whether you are a fundamentalist or you're orthodox or reformist or mystics, please, probably you have ideas to answer the question, please. I think this is a very tough question, yeah, but very important for the government to make decisions and policies. Please. Probably I saw Father okay. Maybe the question is too difficult for us, Prof. Stuckelberger, or probably you have the answer to that question.
No, I think my answer is somehow, yes, we look together for an answer. You know, I'm very much in favor of solutions together. So not one has the answer, but I can add, yeah, we can reflect, you know, how to take it up from here when we have these possibilities. I think lectures or like this one is a good opportunity to share, but then also to do some follow-up. For example, if you further reflect the teachers among you with your students or some research groups to make some proposals, send it to me, and we will share it also in our network. We need these kind of discussions, and as I said, the inclusivity is very key on that. So yeah, I may just a minute add my.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting if we can collaborate, inter-religion collaboration to answer your questions. I think we can cross-fertilize perspectives according to our religious orientation, and probably we will raise more questions, or probably also partially will answer your questions about the religious contribution to environment and sustainable environment and economic development.
I just put my email in the chat as my family name, Stuckelberger @president.foundation in English. President.foundation. Yeah. Foundation is like com or id. And so feel free to communicate and on that. You know, also I think it's also important to dialogue with the religious authorities, because religious authorities in all countries are
Yes, I think Professor Stuckelberger, are you still there? I don't even know whether the problem is in my connection or or in
Maybe from Prof.
Yeah.
Christoph, Prof. Hari, because I also cannot
okay.
hear
And
his voice.
I think it's about time to finish the lecture. But first of all, I would like to thank Professor Stuckelberger for very important, thought-provoking lecture. And I hope it's very useful for us to reflect on the bioethics and religious perspectives for common good. Yeah, I think it's a very good lecture, and I'm sorry that I don't know whether Professor Stuckelberger will reappear or not, but I think I would like to return the moderatorship to CBMH. Silakan ya Mbak Alivia, silakan.
Oke,
Saya
terima
kira
kasih.
bisa kita tutup aja.
Oke, baik. Terima kasih Prof. Hari atas waktunya yang diberikan siang hari ini untuk memimpin diskusi kita. Mungkin Bapak Ibu sebelum Rabuan pada pagi hari ini kami tutup, izinkan kami memberikan beberapa pengumuman, khususnya mengenai pembukaan pendaftaran mahasiswa baru yang gelombang pertamanya nanti sudah akan dibuka pada tanggal 26 September 2023. Berikut bisa disaksikan di layar. Jadi nanti kami akan membuka untuk mahasiswa reguler dan juga mahasiswa berbasis penelitian. Pendaftarannya gelombang 1 mulai tanggal 26 September dan nanti untuk kegiatan akademik mulai di tanggal 12 Februari. Baik, mungkin sekian pengumuman dari kami. Sekaligus kami juga ingin mengumumkan untuk minggu depan kita akan bertemu lagi di Rabuan di jam yang sama. Baik, sebelum kami akhiri, izinkan kami untuk mohon maaf atas mungkin segala kekurangan yang terjadi di Rabuan pada siang hari ini. Sekaligus kami juga mau berterima kasih atas partisipasi Bapak Ibu dan juga sampai jumpa kembali di Rabuan minggu depan.
Terima kasih.
Saya tutup. Okay.
Terima kasih Prof. Hari.
Oh, ini Prof. Christoph baru masuk lagi.
Terima kasih Prof. Hari. Oh, so welcome back.
Thank you very much, Prof. Christoph. Oh, maybe the connection.
I'm sorry, it was interrupted.
Yeah. Maybe there is some problem with your connection.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay.
Yes, Prof. Christoph. Yes, please, Prof. Christoph, because unfortunately the time is already over. So we just ended the discussion.
Oh, maybe Mbak Alif. Maybe there is some that
maybe before
I know.
Maybe before we finally end the discussion, do you have any final statement to say to the participant here, Prof. Christoph?
No, I only thank you for organizing that, and I'm happy that we can continue this contact in the future, and who knows if I'm able to come again to Choktra, or you're welcome in Geneva or we meet in such a beautiful world. Thank you for your participation and organizing, and we keep in touch.
Thank you, Professor Christoph. Thank you so much.
Thank
you so
you,
much,
Prof.
Christoph.
Christoph.
Thank you so much, Prof. Christoph. Looking forward to our next meeting. Okay, so see you again soon, and
So
Bapak
greetings
Ibu.
to Eileen and Lina.
Thank you, Prof. Christoph. See you again.
Thank you.
Again. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu. Akhirnya kami akhiri pertemuan kita pada siang hari ini. Terima kasih banyak. Selamat siang dan Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.